It's been a busy day for political parties as they wrapped up their campaigns ahead of Wednesday's national and provincial elections. In Johannesburg, President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed thousands of supporters who gathered at FNB Stadium for the ANC's Siyanqoba rally. Newzroom Afrika's Juniour Khumalo was at the rally and joins me in studio. Juniour, thank you so much for joining us in studio this evening. It's been a very long day. I know also the program started late. Tell us about this final Siyanqoba rally ahead of the 29 May polls.
Indeed, Masa, it's been a very, very long day. Gates were open at about 7 a.m. in the morning, but it took about 6 to 7 hours before the official program got underway. So some of the delays were caused by people that were traveling from other provinces going to the FNB Stadium. So the ANC said that some of the securities actually were too heavy-handed and they are not allowing people to come in at a pace that allowed them to fill up that stadium. So eventually when the president started talking, actually, it was still not full. It was about 80% full in terms of capacity of the stadium. It's a 94,000-seater stadium. So 80% is not too bad for the ANC leading up to these elections.
But also, are we at all surprised? Because, I mean, you've also been following the different rallies for this election campaign, but also in previous years. The ANC, this is one thing that they seem to do consistently, and it is start late. You know, there's always a bit of a delay with their programs as well. When the program ended as well, it looked as if the stadium was completely evacuated.
Indeed, as we indicated that it started very late. So when the program started about 6 or 7 hours late, some of the individuals were already leaving because some of them were indicating that their buses going to the various provinces were actually waiting for them outside. So as the president was still delivering that speech, the people had to vacate and go to their buses. But the speech was basically the same. When you listen to the ANC when it was launching its manifesto in KZN, the same things that he said they were the same things that he said today. He spoke about 6 priority areas, mainly focusing on unemployment and how the ANC is going to sort out unemployment. Let's take a listen to what he had to say about that.
Over the next 5 years, working with all South Africans, we will implement a jobs plan to put more South Africans to work. We will build our industries and invest in an inclusive economy. We will tackle the high cost of living. We will invest in our people and provide services that our people need. We will continue to defend our democracy and advance the freedom that we fought so hard. We will continue to build a better Africa and a better world for all our children to grow up in.
So taking a listen to those 6 priorities that the ANC president just laid out as well and reiterated today too, how was it received by those in the crowd as well? I mean, earlier you were mentioning that some of them had to leave, not out of choice, but because, you know, it started so late and they needed to get back to their various provinces. But for those who were in the stadium still receiving that message, how was it taken?
I think the one thing that received the biggest applause of the day was when he spoke about the introduction of the basic income grant. He spoke about how the ANC-led government had introduced the 350 COVID relief grant, and they had since kept it because a lot of South Africans are unemployed. But he again indicated that the party was on its way towards introducing this basic income grant. But we know that this is a province that has been made for over 5-6 years now when the ANC was saying that it is going to put it in place. This did receive a lot of applause from the South Africans that were there. He did indicate that they are looking at increasing that 350 to about 750. So it was well received by the crowds. But also one thing that he also pointed to was the ending of load shedding. We expected him to point to the successes of the ANC-led government, such as the ending load shedding, such as also introducing the NHI. But let's take a listen to what he had to say when he spoke about the load shedding issue.
And we have already seen how program of maintenance has been carrying on to make sure that our power stations work more effectively. We have opened the doors to much more investment in electricity generation, particularly in solar and wind.
Junior, that was expected. Load shedding is, of course, a big, big issue in South Africa. And I think we're on day 60 now of no load shedding. And many critics and cynics have been saying that, you know, come May the 30th, we'll be back to our stages 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. And who knows how far we'll even go with that load shedding. But I also want us, Junior, to talk about, you know, how it was received inside, but also the atmosphere outside and the surrounding community as well. What were people saying? How were people feeling about the Siyanqoba rally?
You know, the president, when he was delivering his keynote address, he spoke about how the ANC had been received welcomingly by the people when they were going out in their campaign. He thanked the former leaders of the ANC that have come out supporting the ANC. But this was not the case outside the stadium. Actually, outside the stadium, there were people that were actually burning tires. There were people that were barricading roads as well. So this was when we were driving out. And we all saw all of this. And actually, luckily, the police actually acted very quickly and they were trying to disperse these people. So a lot of people actually from the surrounding community did not attend that rally. So it was a lot of people that came from either KZN. We spoke to a gentleman from Limpopo as well. So people were bussed in to attend that rally. But people from Soweto were saying that we are tired of the promises, the empty promises of the ANC. But not all of them. And indeed, I'm sure some of them came into that stadium.
That's also quite interesting. You're saying that also the police acted quite swiftly, but in effect, this was a protest by the residents or some residents of Soweto to the ANC.
Indeed, it was a protest because there were a lot of tires as we drove out that were burning. There were some rocks that were also put in the streets. But as we were driving past, the police had managed to move them to the sides. So it wasn't an impediment as people were driving out. But this was definitely a cause for concern for the ANC, in particular with the president, whom we know is going to go and vote in Soweto come the 29th of May. So if this repeats itself, it's detrimental to the ANC.
Also, before the president spoke, the premier of Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi, also spoke, and he said they've been contesting these elections not only against other political parties, but also shots were fired at us as the media, saying they were contesting against broadcasters, media houses, and in fact, civil society groups as well. What did you make of some of the things that he was saying as well in terms of their campaign?
Indeed, we are in Gauteng, and Gauteng is expected to be a hotly contested province. So as the chairperson of Gauteng, he had to defend the integrity of the ANC, but also he spoke about some of the achievements that he and the ANC in Gauteng have been able to achieve when it comes to scrapping of the e-tolls. That's one thing that he spoke about, but they also spoke about the water challenges. We know, especially in Hammanskraal, a lot of people died from cholera, and the president and Panyaza himself spoke about how they were trying to improve the water situation in Gauteng. Gauteng is one of those provinces that is experiencing water shedding, which is unheard of in the 30 years of democracy. So that's what he was trying to basically deflate from, but speaking about the challenges that he faced with the media as well as with civil society organizations. But he seemed very confident that the ANC was actually going to get a big victory when it comes to Gauteng. Gauteng in 2019, the ANC only received 50.19%, so they hung on by a bare margin. So it's going to take a lot for them to actually win this province come this elections on the 29th.
It was quite interesting what he had to say as well, considering how, you know, they performed in the province in the last general elections. But also the ceremony started off with religious leaders, and it was opened up in prayer. But it was quite interesting to hear some of the prayers as well for God's intervention, for God to save the country and the ANC to have another privilege to be able to lead society. In that moment as well, because that was earlier in the afternoon as well, before people needed to leave. How was that received by the crowd as well? Were they in agreement? I mean, these are obviously people who've been bussed, and so of course they're supporters.
It was well received. It was a very different moment because we saw like a group of pastors going to the president, offering him, it looked like a stick. They were saying that this is a sign of an ANC victory. But we know that the ANC actually was formed in the church. church, but it was also formed by church leaders. When it comes to Reverend John Langalibalele Dube as well, he is a spiritual leader, and he was one of the people that also formed the ANC. So the ANC is not basically alienated from the church. So they always invite these religious leaders to pray for the ANC, to basically guide them also. But also there are now parties that are also formed from religious organizations, such as the ATM. So with that support from that church sector, it also steals a lot of support from those parties back to the ANC as well.
I'm sure if there are people who are also glad that this was the final rally round for the elections. It's not only the politicians, but journalists like yourselves who've been on the ground, right, Junior?
Indeed, the ANC leaders, you could tell that some of them were tired. They've been spending weeks in KZN. They've spent weeks here in Gauteng also trying to campaign. They were also in the Western Cape, the provinces that the ANC is not so sure about. They've also went to provinces such as Limpopo and the Western Cape, where they've won a lot of votes. But I'm sure they'll be happy to see these elections come and go. But they're still not sure whether they're going to win a majority as they have wanted. But one key thing, the president asked for about 70% of the votes in Limpopo. I think he said 90% actually, and 70% in Gauteng. So there are already certain provinces where the ANC is hoping to win a lot of support so that they get over that 50% that a lot of people say they might not get this time around.
It'll be interesting to see where they get that extra 20%, especially for Gauteng. Junior, thank you so much for joining us in studio. I know it's been an extra long day, and you still have more rallies to attend. So
Indeed, the DA tomorrow.
Yes, and I'll look forward to talking to you about that one too. Well, have a good one.